76 years ago, the Chinese land fall into the hands of the evil Communist Party. We commemorate today for the victim of Chinese Communist Party. 80 million people killed by the Chinese Communist Party. In the 1920s, the specter of communism arrived in Asia, hovering over this Asian land of China. From that time onward, massacres unfold one after another. And to this day, the immense calamity has never ceased. So 76 years ago, on October 1st, 1949, the blood-soaked People's Republic of China was founded by the mass murderer Mao Zedong, the dictator. Since that time, the Asian civilization of China fell. The specter of communism took root in China, unleashing relentless wave of massacre, even more brutal than the previous 30 decades. Before 1949, the Communist Party has already started a massacre from its first day of founding in 1921. In 1950s, the iron boots of the Chinese Communist Party marched into Tibet and eastern Turkestan, subjecting the people of the Uyghur people and the Tibetan people to unimaginable slaughter. Wherever the communism spread, chaos reigned. Corpses litter the land. To date, the man-made calamities brought by the Chinese Communist Party have claimed over 80 million innocent lives. Since 1949, the people living on the soil of China have not only been physically controlled, tortured, and exterminated, but also spiritually humiliated and stripped of wills. Through relentless humiliation and brainwashing, the spiritual land, the spiritual home of the people living on this oriental land has been reduced to barren land and lifeless. And even the limited civilization and freedom has been utterly destroyed. Today's China is festering with decay, rotting swamp, and the foul-smelling soil. October 1st each year marks the birthday of the Chinese Communist Party, the Red Dynasty. The day of China's subjugation, the Chinese people become the slaves of a defeated nation by the Chinese Communist regime. We commemorate China's Day the 4th day of China's Day overseas, just as we have annually commemorated the 1989 Tiananmen massacre. We are not here to wallow defeat, but to rise up. Over the past 76 years, more than 400,000 Chinese intellectuals across China has been persecuted to death in waves of the communist regime's political persecution. However, the Chinese people has never submit itself to the evil communist regime, and the people follow steps one after one to battle against the Chinese communist regime. We commemorate the fall of China Day to pass the torch to call on the people to stand up and
打倒共产党，
打倒共产党，
消灭共产党，
消灭共产党。I speak a little bit in Chinese as well. 在19世纪20年代，共产主义幽灵来到了亚洲，在中原大地上空徘徊。从那个时候起，大屠杀就一个接一个的发生，到现在巨大的灾难一直就没有停止过。76年前，也就是1949年10月1号，红色血腥的中华人民共和国成立，文明古国沦陷，共产党的幽灵在中国驻扎，开始了比之前30年更加残暴的、持续不断的大屠杀。1950年，中国共产党的铁蹄踏进了西藏和东突厥斯坦，两地人民也遭受惨绝人寰的屠杀。共产主义所到之处是穷毛乱舞，尸横遍地。接近中国共产党所制造的人祸，已经残杀8000万个以上的无辜的生灵。1949年以来，生活在中华人民共和国这片土地上的百姓，不仅在肉体上被控制、被折磨、被消灭，而且在精神上受尽屈辱、意志毛病，经过无时无刻的侮辱和洗脑，中国百姓的精神家园，中国的文明已经是一片焦土啊，寸草不生啊，仅有的文明被彻底毁灭。今天，中国全身璀璨，表面的繁荣是少数人的天堂，绝大多数人的地狱，是夺命的腐烂的沼泽，也是臭气冲天的阴沟。我们每年的10月1日是中共红色皇朝的生日，也是中国百姓的沦陷日。我们在海外纪念中国沦陷日，正如我们每年纪念天安门屠杀，不是为了成人，是为了兴起。过去76年来，中国大地上有40多万知识分子前赴后继的跟共产党进行斗争，被迫害致死，各个民族的脊梁骨都被打断，勇士们历经残暴和酷刑，但他们不屈不挠的抗争精神也得以传承。我们纪念中国沦陷日，是为了传承薪火，希望能够辛苦燎原。这就是我们今天在这里聚会的目的。
消灭共匪，
消灭共匪，
打倒共产党，
打倒共产党。
Today we are happy to have the presence of the people from all the community in the Chinese territory.
That including the Wen Chongyi, the president of ANZ Alliance for Victims of the Chinese Communist Regime, and the Uyghur community and Tibetan people as well. and also we have the China Action and Civil Resistance Association here to present themselves on this. Call on the Chinese people to stand up against the Chinese Communist regime. First, I would like to invite Professor Wen Chongyi, the president of the last victim of the Chinese Communist regime. He was also wanted by the Communist Hong Kong authority, wanted by as the bounty fugitive.
Sisters and brothers, thank you for joining us today. Chen Yonglin just now have given a brilliant explanation of why we're gathering here today. This is the 4th of China Day. That's 76 years ago, October the 1st, that established the Chinese People's Republic of China. That's the day of the beginning of the misery, of the suffering of all the nationalities come under the rule of the Xi Jinping. Actually, the biggest disaster in the 20th century for the humankind is the rise of communism. It started from Soviet Union and then fast over to China and then Vietnam, Cambodia, Cuba, and East Europe. Wherever the Communist Party established rule, it is the real totalitarian dystopia. Communist dictatorship, communist tyranny is marked by slaughter, marked by persecution, marked by famine. In China in particular, as Chen Yonglin just mentioned, over 70 years of communist rule in China, at least 80 million innocent people have been killed by this brutal regime, including the famine and execution and also the political persecution. Not only the Han Chinese, but also Tibetans, Uyghurs, Congolese, and of course those people left in China before the Republic of China left to Taiwan. We all know the Republic of China is the combination of Chinese ancient civilization and the Western modern civilization. What in Chinese we call it 中西合璧。所以兄弟们、姐妹们，我们知道，刚才沈永年已经做了很好的解释，为什么我们今天要举行这么一个集会？这是一个中国沦陷日。这一天，共产党认为这个是他们要庆祝，但是对我们中国人来说，这是一个非常悲惨的日子，是我们非常痛彻心扉的日子。就中国沦陷的共产党统治，在民国时期，我们讲中西合璧，就中国人的传统文明继承下来，中国人在当时也全面向世界西方文明开放，全面的吸收西方文明。和共产党统治，他们占领中国之后，他灭掉了中国的传统文明，把地主富农也是凝聚了几千年的中国士绅阶层给灭掉了，同时也把在城镇里头的精英，他们叫资产阶级，同样灭掉了。So the communist rule in China, October 1st in 1949, what it meant to Chinese is that it eliminates Chinese rural elite, that's the rural gentry class, and it also eliminates, kill all the urban middle class. They label them as bourgeois, as well as their modern educated intellectual intelligentsia. So what they plan to rule over China. It's communist bandit. 所以当他们消灭了传统的乡村的这个精英和传统的乡村精英之后，这个中国就会一批土匪来掌控中国。所以这个几十年来，他们一直在屠杀中国人，让中国陷于世贫。If we close our eyes to reflect the history, just imagine it's in 1949, China did not fall to this communist tyranny. We Chinese will enjoy democracy, prosperity, and freedom like the citizens now live in Taiwan, Republic of China in Taiwan. And we can join the international democratic communities around the world. We can open our border to the world civilization, open our arms to receive and observe the advanced civilization around the world. And in the meantime, we can keep our great traditions of Chinese civilization. But all these has gone simply due to this communist tyranny. 中共暴政 ，down with CCP tyranny. Down with 习近平.
打倒共产党！打倒共产党！消灭共产党！消灭共产党！
Nowadays, due to our effort, you and me, all of us, the world has awakened to the evil nature of this regime. And more people join the democracy movement to liberate China, to liberate Hong Kong, to liberate Tibet from the CCP rule. So when we join together, fight in solidarity, we will end this disaster, end this tyranny, end this brutal dictatorship.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Today, we gather with heavy hearts to mark one of the darkest anniversaries in the history of our nation. 76 years ago, the Chinese Red Army marched into eastern Turkestan, what was once a land of independence. Culture and dignity was invaded, occupied, and renamed with a false identity, Xinjiang, meaning new frontier. Later, Beijing cynically established the so-called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, a name designed to deceive the world with the promise of autonomy, while in the truth delivering only oppression. For the Uyghur people and for all the peoples of Eastern Turkestan, this was not autonomy. It was the beginning of colonization, forced assimilation, and the systematic destruction of our way of life. Our homeland was stripped of this sovereignty. Our language, religion, and the tradition were pushed aside. What the Chinese Communist regime called liberation was in fact the loss of our freedom. The decades of the followed only dispended this tragedy from the produce and the famines of the 1950s to the destruction of our mosque and the culture during the Cultural Revolution. To the present day, mass surveillance, concentration camps, forced labor, and the separation of families, the Uyghur people have endured generations of injustice. But history also teaches us something else. no empire lasts forever. Despite decades of repression, the spirit of the Uyghur people has not been broken, including all the people in China. We continue to resist by preserving our language, our faith, and our culture. We continue to speak the truth to the world, even when Chinese tries to silence us. And we continue to dream of our future, where Eastern Turkestan is once again free and sovereignty. Down the CCP and the freedom for all of us. On this anniversary, let us honor the sacrifice of our ancestors who stood against invasion. Let us remember the countless victims whose names may be forgotten by history, but whose blood nourished the tree of freedom. And let us reaffirm our duty to ensure that the Uyghur struggle for justice and dignity is never forgotten, never silenced, and never surrendered. Dear friends, today is not only about the mourning, it's about reminding ourselves that the fight for freedom is long, but it is rightness. Our cause is just, and with the solidarity of all people who believe in human rights and self-determination, one day East Turkestan will rise again, and the whole China will be free from this evil party, evil government CCP. Thank you very much.
In Australia, welcome Dr. Lim Bing. Today, October the 1st, marks the 76th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party formal division of the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. Yet the CCP continue to manipulate language, disguising this day as a national day, celebrating the founding of a nation. This is a deliberate attempt to mislead the Chinese people, the international community, and the world at large, promoting slogans like opposing Taiwan independence and unifying China. In reality, the CCP has always advocated violent red revolution and the overthrow of the legitimate government of China, the Republic of China. Borders are man-made. In the beginning, humans had no nations, only tribes. Through conflict and conquest, the concept of the state emerged. People came first, nations came later. Without people, a nation is nothing. Yet the CCP reverses this logic, claiming without the motherland you are nothing. This is a rhetorical device to justify authoritarian rule. Consider the American colonies in 1776. They declared independence from Britain and went on to build the United States, a far stronger nation than before. Xi Jinping once declared, those who betray the motherland and divide the nation will never end well. They will be condemned by the people and judged by history. But history tells a different story. Since its founding in 1921, the CCP had incited red revolution, violent uprising, and the overthrow of the Republic of China. From 1931 to 1937, it established the Chinese Soviet Republics, a state within a state. In 1949, it founded the People's Republic of China, formally dividing the Taiwan Strait. This division was not caused by the Kuomintang nor by the Democratic Progressive Party, which didn't even exist in 1949. Mao Zedong is the most prominent historical figure who incited violence and division. Under Xi Jinping, the CCP now claims to oppose division, revolution, and violence, and to improve the electoral system. Is this not a tacit ambition of the historical errors committed by Mao and the CCP's founders? Since 1996, the Republic of China in Taiwan has elected its president and vice president through universal suffrage. Whether the Kuomintang or the DPP performs poorly, they are peacefully replaced through bullets, not bullets. Even when parliamentary servers occur, they do not result in killing, like under the CCP. The CCP is the chief culprit behind the division of the two sides of the strait. Whether in Taiwan or on the mainland, we must reject the CCP's legacy of red revolution and violence. The time has come to end the killing of opponents and innocent people in the name of ideology. 我呢度咧再講一講用廣東話。10月1號咧，今日咧係中共正式分裂海峽兩岸76週年嘅日子，但係中共咧一直喺度玩弄咧語言藝術美化為建國嘅叫做國慶嘅日子，故意誤導中國嘅老百姓同世人同埋國際，鼓吹所謂反對台獨，鼓吹咩嘢統一中國。但係中共實際先至係徹頭徹尾宣揚紅色嘅顏色暴力革命，宣揚推翻中國政府、中華民國政府。地球本來係冇國界嘅，所有國界都係人為嘅產物。原始人係冇國界嘅，形成部落之後，經過不斷嘅打仗，先至逐漸形成所謂嘅國家。先有人，先至有國家，冇人。國家乜嘢都唔係。到咗中共，中共近年人為咁樣去刪改歷史嘅邏輯，倒翻轉頭嚟講話冇祖國，你將乜嘢都唔係。呢種講法只係為咗維護中共嘅統治，邏輯上邊根本係站不住腳㗎。大家可以睇睇英國人到咗美洲大陸之後，1776年發表獨立宣言。宣布北美13個殖民地脱離英國，佢哋冇咗祖國，建立咗更加強大嘅美利堅合眾國。中共領導人習近平曾經喺北京紀念辛亥革命110週年嘅大會，鄭重提出凡是數典忘祖、背叛祖國、分裂國家嘅人，從來冇好下場。必將遭到人民嘅唾棄同埋歷史嘅審判。毛澤東1921年成立中共以嚟，一直煽動紅色顏色革命，煽動暴力革命，煽動分裂國家，煽動推翻中國政府、中華民國政府。呢個就係點解會出現20-30年代嘅中國內亂。中共1931年去到1937年建立中華蘇維埃共和國，分裂中國成為國中之國。中共1949年建立中華人民共和國，正式分裂海峽兩岸。兩岸嘅分裂唔係國民黨造成，更加唔係民進黨。1949年都未成立民進黨。毛澤東先至係歷史上煽動暴力分裂中國嘅最典型嘅例子。習近平執政以來，提出反對分裂國家，反對推翻中國政府，反對顏色革命，反對暴力革命，完善選舉制度。 呢個係咪正係檢討糾正毛澤東呢啲中共創始人對中國同埋中國人民犯下歷史嘅錯誤呢？台灣嘅中華民國政府從1996年開始，由選民通過普及而直接嘅選舉去產生中華民國總統、副總統，無論國民黨定係民進黨唔稱職，都會被選民通過選票進行和平嘅更換。即使議會出現肢體衝突，亦唔會好似中共咁樣攞刀攞槍去殺人。中共先至係分裂兩岸嘅罪魁禍首。無論台灣或者係中國大陸，再唔可以繼續中共嘅紅色顏色暴力革命，去殺害對手，去殺害不同意見嘅人，同埋殺害老百姓。最後，我哋睇下有冇人一齊唱呢個願榮光歸香港。何以這土地淚再流？何以令眾人亦憤恨？昂首拒默沉吶喊聲響頭，盼自由歸於這裏。何以這恐懼沒不就？何以為信念從沒退後？何解血在流，但邁進聲響頭，見自由光輝香港。在晚星墜落彷徨午夜，迷霧裏最遠處吹來號角聲，看自由來齊集夜裏，來全力抗隊，用起智慧有永不滅。黎明來到，要光復這香港，同行兒女為正義，時代革命，祈求民主與自由，萬世都不朽。我願榮光歸香港，光復香港，
光復香港，
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 光復香港。
光復香港
Free Hong Kong!
Free Hong Kong!
Free Tibet!
Free Tibet!
Free Uyghur!
Free Uyghur!
Free China!
Free China!
Thank you, Doctor. Now I'd like to invite John Dallin, spokesman of Maranatha Association.
大家好，今天对某些人来说呢，确实是一个值得庆祝的第一天，但是对很多人来说，确实是一个苦难、失落。它提醒我们，这个国家不等于政权，政权不等于人民，而被迫的人民从来也不被沉默。那近来呢，藏地再度传出令人心碎的消息，年轻的藏人歌手阿桑，仅仅是因为唱出了一首名为《和平王子》的歌曲，一首赞颂达赖喇嘛尊者祈愿和平的歌，他便被中国逮捕并判刑入狱。一首歌竟被视为威胁，在那座政权的眼里，即使是旋律，也成为审查的武器。但在我们心中，阿桑的歌曲将化作另一种力量，它提醒世界，在高墙之内，依然有人用音符在祈祷自由。就在这首歌被禁唱的同时，另一场被称作艺术创作的行为，却在我们的圣山上肆意燃放。知名品牌始祖 Artrix 与艺术家蔡国强在西藏日喀则的雪山山脊燃放了所谓的神龙圣火。那一夜，圣火暗亮了高原的天空，但同时也点燃了人们的愤怒。专家指出，高原生态极其脆弱，低氧气、低温使得所谓可降解材料的根本难以分解。一夜的烟火换来的是长久的沉默。 这不是对环境的践踏，更是对藏人信仰与文化的忍辱。在我们的土地上，没有任何人，没有任何藏人，任何品牌有权以艺术的名称伤害高原，践踏信仰。那今天我也想起一位勇敢的汉人姐妹张雅迪，她是华语青年挺藏会的编辑，也是白纸运动之后愿意为藏人与少数民族愿意为他们发声的年轻华人之一。在今年的7月，他回长沙探亲，在月底云南香格里拉被中国国安以危害国家的罪名拘捕。那从此他便失联。藏人、维吾尔人、港人还有汉人的民主人士，虽然来自不同的土地，说着不同的语言，但我们的命运可以说是成为我们大家的一个共同体。所以每年的这天，虽然我们人数确实很少，但是我们也相信我们的声音被这些走旁边的人所听到。那有一天我们很希望你们不只是听到，你们不只是站在我们这一边，也希望能够做出一个 practical 的action。因为我觉得在某个地方有不平等的时候，我们每一个人都有义务去站出来，去声援，去发声。谢谢。那现在我们这边有一个我们的藏人的小青年，他也希望可以有英语的这样一个机会去对今天这一天show solidarity。那我先请他讲一些话，谢谢。
Friends, thank you for being here. My name is Tenzin, and I'm here on behalf of VTAC, a voluntary Tibetan advocacy group, and I'm here also as an advocate for human rights and justice as well. So today is October 1st, and CCP is celebrating it as a national day. And in Beijing right now, there will be parades, fireworks, and speeches about prosperity and unity. But in reality, what you should know is that today is a day of mourning. This day represents as the start of evil, systematic suppression, not just for Tibet, but also for all the people who have suffered under CCP. And I'm here to tell you a story that they don't want us to tell you guys. So 60 years ago, on March 10, 1959, my people rose up, Tibetan people rose up. And Tibetan across all 3 provinces stood together against Chinese oppression, but we were crushed. And His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, along with his people, was exiled, an exile that still continues to today. And they're still trying, after all these, to suppress Tibetan people. And what they're doing now is that nowadays there's nearly 1 million Tibetan children, including 100,000 preschoolers, some as young as 4 years old, have been taken away from their families, and they are in state boarding schools where they were taught to forget who they are. Their identity is separated from their language, their culture, and their family. So by the end of this year, what you can expect is that over 930,000 rural Tibetans will be forced to relocate to cities torn away from their lands which they lived for generations over generations. And just this summer, they arrested a young woman named Zhang Yadi. She's 22 years old, a student who was studying in France, and she's a member of an activist group called Chinese Youth for Tibet Han, Chinese people advocating for Tibetan rights. And she maintained websites creating digital platform for dialogue on Chinese languages. And when she came back home in China, they arrested her. The reason for that is because they say she's endangering national security. Just think about that. A student advocating for human rights, and Beijing called it as a national security. called it as a threat for national security. And so far in 2023, China decided to stop using the word Tibet altogether. They wanted everyone to call it Xizang, which is a pure propaganda to erase Tibetan identity and existence from history. And they are pressuring institutions across the world to comply. So looking at Gimit Museum in Paris, what you notice is that they complied with CCP's influence, and what they did is they removed Tibet from their gallery names, and they replaced it with Xizang. But they were pushed back by Tibetan advocates, Tibetan people. But this shows is that how far Beijing's influence reaches, even into museums in democratic countries like France. But perhaps what angers me the most is that China wants to control the next Dalai Lama. They, an atheist government that has spent over decades trying to destroy our faith, religion, just want to tell who our next spiritual leader is. And by attempting to impose state control over religious practices, China is also violating fundamental human rights. And I wish I could say it's only Tibet, but that same thing happens across the board. It happens with Taiwan, it happens with Uyghur. For instance, Taiwan isn't safe either. As of May this year, 89 Taiwanese people were arrested or detained in China. And Beijing, as of now, is increasing their military budget over 7% up to like 245 billion, which is like insane. And they are conducting all these military drills, and the message is clear. They just want to keep expanding their influence across China. And I'm asking you all, international community and all the people here, that don't just sympathize Tibet, Uyghur, Taiwan, and all the minorities that is under China. Please act and hold China accountable. Support our right to self-determination, human rights, and tell them they cannot violate our fundamental human rights. And as I stand here, what I'm thinking about is everything that we have lost, everything we have lost in the last 50, 60 years. And being a Tibetan growing up, and as I think back, like, you know, being a Tibetan, as I think back, what I feel, what I think about is all the Tibetan lives that has been lost because of Chinese oppression, and all the other people that is killed, murdered, massacred because they challenged, like, against the government in just looking for their human rights and their fundamental other human values. And also, as I stand here, I'm not just thinking about the past, all the bad things that has happened to all the people that is sitting here. I'm thinking also about the future, because what I believe is that one day Tibetan children will grow up in Tibet, speaking Tibetan, learning in Tibetan school. One day we will be able to choose our own leader without Beijing or China's interference. And one day we all will be free. Uyghur will be free, Taiwan will be free, and Tibet will be free. So while they celebrate in Beijing this so-called national day, we should remember that we stand against those who have no voice when they're under China's influence. We stand against human rights. We stand against those who can't speak, and we should keep fighting for the freedom they are trying to steal away from us. Thank you.
Part of here is the fall of China, October the 1st. So of course we've heard in China that the CCP is trying to celebrate the 1st of October as something that's good for the Chinese people. But of course it's not, and all the communities here today have their experiences and testimony and suffering. Why the 1st of October is a day of misery for the Chinese people, for the Uyghur people, for Tibetan people, for Hong Kong people, Taiwan, and Australians, where we all come from these communities. So it is the fall of China. The 1st of October should be recognised formally as a day commemorating the fall of China, because traditional China, as Chen Yongling and other speakers have said, has nothing to do with communism. Communism is a foreign ideology enforced on the Chinese people, and they've suffered for so long. And yet Western countries and other people in China promote China as a fantastic example of productivity and wealth and economic growth because of the Communist Party. That's absurd. The only reason that China has developed is because of the hard work, the intelligence and the will of the Chinese people being free to work within that communist system. That's the only reason. It's got nothing to do with the Communist Party at all. They have the restriction on the Chinese people. And the Falun Gong practitioners, it's also known as Falun Dafa, many of you know that. It was practiced in China, first taught there publicly in 1992. And since then, there was over 70 million to 100 million people practicing traditional Chinese Qigong, following the principles of Zhen, Shan, Ren, to be a good person, to follow truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Now, of course, in China, that's the opposite of what the Communist Party wants. That's the opposite of what the Communist Party stands for. So, of course, they're going to attempt to stamp out Falun Gong. And they did after a few years. By 1999, they began a persecution, which continues today. And they're not content, as all the communities here today will testify, the Communist Party is not content with persecuting the communities of China within China. Transnational repression impacts all of us. Falun Gong community, the Uyghur community, Tibetans, Hong Kong people, and that's the impact of the Communist Party. But you know, a lot of these rallies, I know everyone shouts, you know, free China, down with the CCP, but I don't. Of course I want China to be free, but I know fighting with the Communist Party is not effective. Nobody can win by fighting and opposing them. All you have to do is expose them and they will collapse because they're evil. Once people know they're an evil, brutal regime, who will have the ridiculous, no common sense, who would have the audacity to stand up and say, I defend the Communist Party? Nobody will. But so far there's too much just following the CCP from our government, from Western governments, because of what are perceived as benefits, economic benefits. But there is no real economic benefit from trading with the CCP. It's like trading with the mafia. There's always strings attached, and once you get enmeshed in that system, it's very hard to get out. Even we have a banner here, something about, you know, Xi Jinping get out. You know the expression of riding a tiger in China. Anyone trying to get off that Chinese Communist Party tiger gets eaten. And that's their fear as well. But that doesn't excuse them. But the best way to get rid of the Communist Party is for all the Chinese people to stop agreeing with it, to stop following it, to stand up. And that's what the Chinese people are doing, and they will do more. Stand up and regain their integrity as a people. Stop being afraid of being honest. Stop being afraid of being a good person in China and call out immorality, call out the atrocities in China. Of course, we do that here. We do that in our communities in Australia. But the Chinese people are learning that largely through the efforts of Falun Gong practitioners. And that's the Tweedang movement to quit the CCP. And that's been going on since the 9 commentaries of Jinping, since November 2004. So there is over 450 million Chinese people who have withdrawn from the communist system, from their allegiance to the young pioneers and the youth brigade, all those terrible atrocities that are inflicted on young Chinese people. And we see the banner, I think it's over there now, about to end forced excess study on Chinese students having to study from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. that's typical of the current system under Xi Jinping, is to keep brainwashing students because they know the older people are already fed up with the communist system. They know what the communist system is and they are waking up to withdrawing from it. But the young people are still innocent and get brainwashed. So rallies like this today are really important to help raise awareness of what needs to happen. And that's all of us keep doing our efforts, making our efforts, but also supporting Chinese people to quit the CCP. And that the CCP will collapse, just as the communist system collapsed in the USSR, in Russia, in Czechoslovakia, when the local people stop accepting the lies. It's like the old story of the emperor has no clothes. The Communist Party has no clothes, but they keep tricking people to think that they are the only force that can manage China, and that's truly wrong. So I really appreciate coming here today and seeing everyone's efforts, and I hope people walking past can stop and understand the efforts of people here today, because we're not against China. We are for the Chinese people, and we are for the suffering of East Turkestan people, Tibetan people, who are suffering under the communist system. Thank you.
各位朋友，大家好。Hello， 今天是6一年的国耻日，中国人民沦于中共的统治下已经有76个年头。这么多年里，中共对海内外华夏儿女和藏人、维吾尔人、港人以及宗教人士造成的伤害是罄竹难书的。然而，随着中国经济形势的下滑，中共维稳经费的不足，中国人民不满情绪的积蓄，有识之士都可以看到，中国社会已经接近变革的临界点。从白纸运动到江油事件，再到最近的于朦胧事件，我们可以看到，在中国越来越多的普通人，他们所期盼的平凡的岁月静好的生活，在被中共所剥夺，他们最基本的尊严与权利在被中共所践踏凌辱，所以他们也在用自己的方式对中共进行着无声或有声的抵抗。在中共体制下，没有人是安全的，没有人能保证同时享有精神和物质的自由与富足。白纸运动改变了3年防疫暴政的走向，而我们相信，只要全体被中共伤害的或觉得即将被中共伤害的人民联合起来，发出自己的声音，以自己的方式做出抵抗，不管是举起一张白纸，还是为受霸凌者发声，亦或是为自己喜欢的明星讨回公道，积少成多，聚沙成塔，变革就会在我们手中发生。我们要让中共听到我们的声音，我们不合作，我们不接受，我们不满意，我们想要翻天覆地的变革。时间到了 ，CCP step down， 是时候了，中国必须改变。也邀请在中国发生变革有兴趣的朋友关注我们的推特账号。好，谢谢大家。
Has been threatened by military threat by the Chinese Communist regime, and China has prepared for invading Taiwan in the past several decades, and it feel that it has been strong enough its attempt to invade Taiwan. And welcome Debbie Wang from Taiwan.
Today is not a day to celebrate, but a day of mourning. Today marks the 76 years since the Chinese Communist Party took power. 76 years of lies, repression, and bloodshed. 今天，身为一个出生在台湾的人，能跟大家站在这里，我心中百感交集。我们在南半球这个美丽的澳大利亚，在这样的美丽的日子里面，不是在家里享受天伦之乐，不是在公园晒太阳、喝咖啡、做自己喜欢的事情，而是站在这个街头，发出我们心痛的声音。是什么样的迫害，让人不得不离乡背井？是什么样的政权，让人连安身立命的自由都没有？我们全家30多年前从台湾移民来澳洲， 因为我的父亲他担心有一天中共会打台湾，这个不是杞人忧天，而是一个父亲对集权本质的深刻理解。今天是1949年10月1日之后的第76个年头。76年前的今天，毛泽东在北京宣布成立中华人民共和国，共产集权正式登场，也拉开了中国人民长达70多年的苦难序幕。主办单位称今天是中国沦陷日，我觉得一点都不为过。76年本来可以创造多少的希望与繁荣，但我们看到的是什么？想象如果没有解放军人入侵西藏，藏人可以在达赖喇嘛的带领下安居乐业，延续自己的信仰和文化。想象如果没有文化大革命，几千年的文化积累会让中国成为世界最灿烂的人文宝库。想象如果没有8964，那一代的学生原本可以带领中国走向真正的自由与民主。想象如果香港没有沦陷，它会继续是亚洲新闻自由的灯塔，是华人世界最坚实的法治堡垒。想象如果没有极端的清零政策，还有数位监控，中国人可以思想自由、身体自由、经济自由、言论自由，没有恐惧。凭着中国人的聪明与勤奋，中国早就该是世界最让上人尊敬的国家，是人民安居乐业、有真正的自由、有尊严的地方。所以我在这里要鼓励所有还在中共国统治下的中国朋友们，加油，醒来，站起来！不论你在哪里，请继续发声，捍卫你们的权利，一点一滴的夺回被中共夺走的人性、尊严还有美善。也鼓励我们在台湾、在澳洲、在世界各地的公民，请与中国人民站在一起，支持他们，支持所有渴望自由、争取人权的声音。今天的你我站在这里，不只是纪念过去的伤痕，也是在为下一代的希望、为亚洲的未来发出我们的呐喊。让愿真相被听见，愿自由能够早日到来。谢谢大家。所以我要再说一次 ，Again I say, today is not a day to celebrate, but a day of mourning. We are here to say the CCP does not represent China. It does not represent the Chinese people. We stand here, Chinese, Taiwanese, Australians, everybody, not to celebrate the tyranny, but to demand freedom. Down with the CCP!
Down with CCP!
Thank you.
Forced detentions, indoctrinations, killings and torture, sterilization of women, separation of children from their parents, forced marriages, forced labor and organ harvesting. Forced indoctrination issue is very, very important. Tolerating
习近平早日把澳洲统一，他演这个纪录片好了，他演早日统一全世界。他连打台湾都不给啊，对不对？习近平万岁
culture. And this is, of course, totally unacceptable. Unfortunately, it is very sad to say that in the last 8 years or so, as the Chinese Communist Party has banned the language, Uyghur language to be used, Now the children are not able to speak their language. Can you imagine? If somebody comes and tells you, you cannot talk to your children in your own mother language. It is totally unacceptable.
English.
Now Chinese Communist Party initiated. After 8 years, now they're
Presidency number one. Presidency taking over.
In Uzbekistan is happy and they are living in harmony with each other. They also invite officials and journalists from the various countries in the world in staged happy minority images. So people, they are showing people as dancing, smiling, and eating and dancing to promote that there is no genocide in that part of the world. Also, they choose hand-picked, specially chosen people, officials, journalists from the world, or the so-called social media people, the liars. So they come and promote the lie of the Communist Party in Xinjiang province. Obviously, their aim is to deflect the international criticism, whitewash the human rights abuses in East Turkestan, and showcase that the people are happy and a multi-ethnic unity is displayed. So I don't want to take your time more than this. I really appreciate your time. We are here to call for an end to the CCP. Amounted to crimes against humanity and risk of genocide. In making this decision, they took into consideration forced detentions, indoctrinations, killings and torture, sterilization of women, separation of children from their parents, forced marriages, forced labor and organ harvesting. Forced indoctrination issue is very, very important. Tolerating
习近平早日把澳洲统一，他演这个经历就好了，习近平早日统一全世界。他连打台湾都不给啊！对对。
Culture, and this is, of course, totally unacceptable. Unfortunately, it is very sad to say that in the last 8 years or so, as the Chinese Communist Party has banned the language, Uyghur language to be used, now the children are not able to speak their language. Can you imagine? If somebody comes and tells you, you cannot talk to your children in your own mother language. It is totally unacceptable.
English.
Now Chinese Communist Party initiated.
牛逼啊！不要怪我啊！
你是 support CCP， 你 support 习近平。
After 8 years, now they're
Presidency number one. Presidency taking over.
In East Turkestan is happy and they are living in harmony with each other. They also invite officials and journalists from the various countries in the world in staged happy minority images. So people, they are showing people as dancing, smiling, and eating and dancing to promote that there is no genocide in that part of the world. Also, they choose hand-picked, specially chosen people, officials, journalists from the world, or the so-called social media people, the liars. So they come and promote the lie of the Communist Party in Xinjiang province. Obviously, their aim is to deflect the international criticism, whitewash the human rights abuses in East Turkestan, and showcase that the people are happy and a multi-ethnic unity is displayed. So I don't want to take your time more than this. I really appreciate your time. We are here to end, to call for an end to the CCP.
Persecuted, and after he moved to Australia, and he became a candidate of Hong Kong Parliament in exile, and the CCP issued a wanted letter to him that to try to put him, try to catch him, and let him say how this story.
我可以讲面对力呢，讲面对力，比较容易听啊，比较容易听啊。我讲广东话也可以，面对力嘛，哎，讲面对力，哎，他们也是讲面对力的，是不是啊？哎，哎，小伙子，对吗？他是讲面对力的吗？听得懂吗？听得懂吗？面对力啊，面对力是讲国语、普通话，我会讲。我是一个从中国经过香港，再经过台湾到澳大利亚的人啊。我说共产党啊，在这10年里面啊，把我的家害得惨啊，太惨了，家破人亡。我爸爸是从1950年从香港回去建设新中国，响应那个共产党号召，回去建设新中国。1950年啊，从香港回去的，回来的中国的，结果做生意文化那个公私合营，56年、58年共产风，把我老爸的家产资产全部都吞掉了。他们是有计划的。他从53年的时候派一个工人，从工会派一个工人到我老爸的店里面打工，然后这个工人过了3年5年以后，他就变成没收资本家财产生意的，他就变成做经理了，我老爸就变成打工了。啊，这个工人花了5年的时间，在我老爸手下打工，到了58年，他就把我老爸的东西全部吞掉。啊，我相信不是他个人吞的，上面是共产党指挥他，叫他吞掉的，然后他就当了经理，我老爸就变成工人，结果我老爸就气得吐血。结果他就不要了，生意我不要，啊，我去打太极做中医，结果太极中医做了几年，啊，又到文化大革命了。我老爸是从香港1950年回去中国的，建设新中国的。到了那个文化大革命时候，就说他是特务了。风资收了，反革命了，啊，又把他抓出来斗了，
结果就搞死他了，搞了几个月就把他搞死掉了。你想想看，一个很好的中国人，他从香港1950年听共产党的欺骗，共产党真的是大骗子，明白吗？对呀，他是大骗子，他把我老爸骗回去，建设新中国，结果他就58年就把我们老爸的财产全部接收去了，没收掉。到后来文化大革命的时候，又说他是风之烧反革命，因为我老爸很喜欢道家思想，中国的传统文化。他说他只崇拜道家思想、中国文化，他不喜欢马列主义、毛泽东思想，他不要。他要道家思想、道家文化，他要太极拳，要做气功，他要做中医。结果老爸这样做就给他去斗，把他害死了然后轮到我们家，就要被封家了、抄家，我们一家人就赶去接上去所以那个时候就没办法我们兄弟就反抗，结果又出事了，结果我们就不行了，他们拿枪拿子弹来对付我们如果拿刀拿棍我们不怕他们，但是他拿子弹用枪我们就没办法，只能逃去香港。去了3年以后就把我的家封掉，老爸老妈就抓去留兰的，那个时候叫做学习班，不能回家弟弟妹妹就赶着接上去，你赶就接上去结果我老爸以前的徒弟就收留了他3个弟妹我没办法，我在香港，本来我是跑香港的，1967年跑香港，1969年我又回来什么？我买了一个小船，又回来带我的妈妈、我弟妹去香港去，因为这个是我老爸临死前跟我讲的，你要想办法把我家里人带回香港去。他临死的时候跟我讲的话那我就好吧。我就从香港回来就带老爸，结果出事了，失败了。共产党就把我抓起来，说我是投敌叛国、反革命、偷渡集团首犯，判20年徒刑。想想看。我回来带家里的人回去香港，会判我们是投敌叛国20年。
等一下，我把我的视频导出来我们卖到价，